What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and it's Top 10 Thursday. I consider myself a really calm dude. Hanging out with my friends and playing stuff is one of my favorite things to do, but occasionally I've lost my mind and freaked out over a game. This could be because of a broken boss or a screwed up autosave, but it led to me accidentally smashing a gadget. This has only happened a few times in my 30 years, but today, just for fun, I figured I'd share with you the top 10 games that made me smash controllers. Number 10. World of Warcraft. For years, I was really into MMORPGs. Going online like this was so addictive to me because I knew that no matter how good I got at the game, there'd always be someone better. My favorite thing to take on was player versus player combat, specifically the arena. Competing in such a direct way was so cool, and it was the ultimate test of skill. However, there was one class that I could never stand battling, and that was paladins. These guys had a million different spells that could heal them, so defeating them took forever. There was a match where I seriously spent 25 minutes trying to murder this one jerk, and right as I got him down to his last piece of health, he used an ability that brought him instantly back to full life. Overcome with insane frustration, I stood up and snapped my keyboard over my knee and swore I'd never log in again. Number 9. Mega Man X3. When it comes to tough Super Nintendo titles, the Mega Man X trilogy certainly ranks among the highest of challenges. Each entry in this series invents new ways to kill you 1,000 times over, but somehow I managed to just barely beat the first two Mega Man X games. When I saved up enough money for the third, I soon discovered the limits of my gaming talents. Admitting this is honestly embarrassing, but I couldn't even finish the first level I went into. No matter what tactics I attempted, how quick my dashes were, or how good I landed my shots, I'd still lose. There was a full weekend where I slammed myself against these maps and still got nowhere until I just wanted to give up. In a flash of temporary rage, I threw my SNES controller on the ground, not even that rough, and yet it was clearly hard enough to shred the wires inside, leaving me with a useless hunk of plastic. Number 8. For Honor. Of all the disappointing projects that have come out this year, For Honor stands alone because it had so much potential. A hyper-realistic sword fighting game is something the world has been begging for, but Ubisoft managed to screw it up with microtransactions and incredibly flawed balancing. There's a large cast of warriors from all across history bringing their own unique techniques to the table. On paper, this is pure perfection. In practice, though, it's a system that's easily messed with. In my opinion, the biggest problem is that tossing players off ledges is by far the fastest way to score kills. Instead of bothering to outmaneuver your opponent, just trick them into walking near a cliff and tap throw. In what felt like my 500th match, I was having a 1v1 against a guy who was much higher level, so I assumed that he was of epic skill. Sadly, the only thing he was skilled at is being the lord of cheap moves. Off the ledge I went, again and again, and to make matters worse, he sent me a direct message claiming I was trash. As a semblance of retribution, I slowly set down my PS4 remote on the desk, punched it once, and then deleted For Honor from my console. Number 7. The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. A good boss makes you rethink everything you've learned thus far in a game. Zelda titles are geniuses of this design style because each dungeon is typically based around a specific item. For example, using the grapple hook to travel around or the bombs to blow off body parts. Towards the end of Wind Waker, we start getting boss fights that combine multiple puzzle mechanics together into devious new situations. Puppet Ganon is one of the last guardians before the final man himself, and it provides a daunting task. To even hurt this bizarre cursed creature, you have to cut his strings to bring him down. By throwing your boomerang, it's supposed to loop around, chopping his cords, and then return to your hand. When I was playing though, my boomerang got stuck circling in the sky, leaving me with no way to fight. I was left helpless as Puppet Ganon pounded on me. This happened 6 times in a row, so as a petty act of revenge, I took my crappy third-party controller and threw it like a stupid boomerang over the fence outside. Number 6. Halo Reach. Dying in any game can get annoying, especially if you were doing good. This is a lesson I learned in the worst way while blasting a path of carnage through Halo Reach. Before Master Chief went on to save planet Earth from the evil Covenant, these Spartans got assigned the duty of protecting humanity no matter the cost. The campaign of Reach takes you to loads of wonderful locations across the globe, but it's not exactly a vacation. These aliens think that the trail to heaven leads straight through our annihilation. Because of this, they brought all the tanks, machine guns, and rocket launchers they'll ever need to wipe us out. There was one battle where I found myself pinned down by a pincer attack of enemy bullets, leading to my sudden demise. Here is where things get really bad though. The moment their shot entered my skull to destroy my soggy brain, I stepped on an autosave checkpoint. I got locked in a repeating track of life and death. Seeing myself get blown away thousands of times over was too much, so like a mature adult, I laid down my controller and bashed it with a sword. Number 5. Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. This is both my favorite PSP game and also my favorite Metal Gear Solid. Playing as Big Boss is so fantastic, and I love the smaller mission structure. The fact that you could just run through tiny maps and take out exact objectives was awesome. Since I was having a cool experience with this, I decided to go for an S ranking on all levels. Doing this is a matter of scoring flawless headshots, never being seen, and completing the mission in some very short minutes. After knocking out the main quests and a large chunk of side ops, I was thinking this would be fairly easy. That is until I landed on a mission that was flat out impossible. Running through this gauntlet on repeat, the stress began to stack up on me. My hands were shaking, sweat was on my forehead, and with each attempt I could feel myself getting worse instead of better. I figured I'd give myself one more try, but without noticing, I was gripping my PSP incredibly tight. Rounding the corners and pushing myself to the limit was slightly more than this poor handheld could take, and I accidentally ripped the joystick off entirely. Number 4. Dead Rising. There was a phase in my life where I was obsessed with getting every achievement I could. Dead Rising is rather famous for having a special achievement built into it that's literally painful to get. 7-Day Survivor requires you to live for a solid week inside this zombie-filled mall. Thankfully it's in-game time, but that still equals 14 hours of playing, and you're not allowed to save, which means you'll have to do this in a single sitting. Avoiding damage while stockpiling food and guns is tough, but I was ready for the test. The problem is that the only way to check how long you've been alive is by walking through a door so the clock pops up. When I was getting close to the 14-hour mark, I wanted to see how much excruciating waiting was left for me. Right as I walked through the front door of the place I was hiding though, it said, "Congratulations, you're a 7-day survivor," and at that exact second, it somehow froze the game. It didn't give me the achievement, and to add to the suckiness, it corrupted my file. I did what any logical person would do. I ejected the disc, snapped it in half, and crammed Dead Rising and the controller under the couch, hoping to never lay eyes on it again. Number 3. Syphon Filter 2. Sometimes a little trash talk can really get under my skin. Hearing a foe shout insults while I'm fighting with all my strength makes me temporarily lose my sanity. For the dramatic showdown finale of Syphon Filter 2, you're severely outmatched. This boss actually has full body armor that makes him immune to harm and a huge shotgun that fires hundreds of bullets a minute. If one of these rounds even slightly taps you, it can send our hero Gabe flying, which leads to a nasty game over. The key to defeating him is to roll out of the helicopter, grab some armor of your own, and then shove him into the blades. The issue is that I didn't know this the first time I faced him. To me, he was this agonizing beast who was grinding me to the pavement. Every weapon I used was pointless, and all the while he's yelling about how weak and stupid I am. In the modern day, I could look up a strategy guide and have him knocked out in moments, but since this was the 90s, I had to handle it retro style. To vent my frustration, I walked out into the back driveway and flat out smashed my controller, but then I walked back inside, picked up my spare, and conquered that boss. Number 2. Resident Evil 4. Survival horror will always be perhaps my deepest love. Going through a spooky adventure over and over until you know every scare is wonderful, especially with multiple difficulties. The release of Resident Evil 4 was a bombshell that changed how people saw both shooters and horror titles. Due to its immense popularity, I somehow became transfixed on dominating every aspect of this game. That means racking up high scores on the Mercenaries maps, speedrunning Ada Wong's side mission, and finishing the main story in the hardest mode. Professional basically just makes it so that monsters hit 10 times harder and have double the health. This might not sound too insane, but it really gave me some major trouble. I once spent every night of a summer working on finishing this, and I nearly did. That is until I got to Krauser. This mutant traps you in a multi-phase encounter where it chases you around a series of towers, slowly exhausting your weapons and healing items. Sadly, I made a devastating mistake partly through this battle. Halfway through the event, there's a save point which I foolishly used despite being extremely low on ammo. I would now have to make every single shot count, and spoilers, I didn't pull it off properly. After angrily staring at the death screen for the 90th time, I ripped the cords from my TV, wrapped them around my entire PS2, and shoveled the bundled console into the dumpster outside. Number 1. Pokémon Red. Growing up, I kept a Game Boy in my pocket constantly. The ability to enjoy titles like Killer Instinct and Pokémon Red during my lunch breaks at school or waiting for my parents to get off work was amazing. It also allowed me to make new friends easily since I moved a lot, and everywhere I went, other kids would have Game Boys so we could have something to talk about. My Game Boy was basically my life. That is until I reached the end of Pokémon and got badly stuck. Instead of having one last boss, there are technically 4. They call themselves the Elite Four, and they earn this title by each having some of the strongest monsters on the planet. To prepare myself, I spent tons of hours training for the ultimate challenge, crafting what I saw as the perfect fighting force. When I was ready, I took them on one by one, and in my last try, I made it all the way to Lance the Dragon Master. When we were both down to our single remaining Pokemon, he managed to cast Confuse on me. I had to sit there and watch as my Pokemon spent 5 full turns punching himself in the face. This drove me absolutely crazy, so I carried my Game Boy to the yard with a baseball bat and smashed it in half. Thankfully, I managed to gather up the parts and reconstruct it. Well, other than the start button, that was lost forever. Because of that, I awarded this my pick as the game most likely to make me break a controller. Is your favorite game that made you rage quit not on the list? Got an idea for a future top 10? Leave it in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. I want to send a giant thank you to all my friends who actually donated the broken controllers. Everything that was smashed in this video was already defective before I got it. In fact, some stuff like that PSP is like basically hanging open. So you guys are the best, especially my friend Austin. He donated the copy of Dead Rising. So thank you. I literally could not have made this video without your help. Let's do one more just for fucking, because I like to have way too much footage. Oh, well, we're not getting a third one of this. It lost a fucking...
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we're not getting a third one of that. Oh, well. Oh, hey, I was just playing a little bit of Grand Theft Auto on my Darth Vader PSP. Are you curious what I'm going to come out with next? Well, if you click this button, you'll be subscribed to be the first to know. Also, if you click over here and here, you can see my latest review and my latest top 10. I promise, it was super good. Or it was really bad, and I'm sure you can just make fun of me in the comments. Either way, it'll be a lot of fun. Thanks so much for watching.